Communication is a great way of sharing information, of expressing our feelings, and of showing what we want. However, we know that most people with intellectual disabilities have great difficulties communicating. Often staff find it really difficult to communicate with them. They maybe use too much language, too much speech. Sometimes they use language that's too complicated for people. And in doing this, it makes it even more difficult for people to take part in activities and interactions going on around them. Active support is a great way to create opportunities for communication. Enjoying shared activities and interaction helps to give people something to communicate about. We know that the best way to get to know individuals, both what they like and how they communicate, is to actually work with them, to try new things with them. And it's much easier to do that than to sit on the sofa beside them while they stare at the wall. Jim Mansell used to tell the story of a visit to a service where he arrived, had the door open to him, was welcomed and then ushered in up to the office. As he was passing the living room, he noticed that there was a lady sitting in a chair and she was just sitting there staring at the floor a little bit, rocking in her seat. The television was on, but she was clearly not watching it. Jim expressed that it felt really uncomfortable, that he didn't know whether to speak to her, or if he spoke to her, would she understand what he was saying. And also, there wasn't really anything very much to talk about. There was nothing going on for this lady where she was sitting. Later on, he escaped from the office. He never was a great fan of paperwork, and he came down to find the lady. When he went to the living room, he realised that she wasn't there, but he was suddenly aware that there was somebody behind him in the kitchen. He turned around to see the lady who he'd seen earlier standing at the cooker and being supported to stir a big pot of bolognese sauce. As he looked at her, she looked towards him, she made eye contact with him, and she grinned from ear to ear. All of a sudden, this seemed like a completely different situation. Now she was doing something, and something that she clearly really enjoyed. She wanted him to notice she was making eye contact with him and smiling at him. Now all of a sudden there was communication, interaction, a smile. Now he felt confident to approach her. There was something to communicate about, even if it was only spaghetti bolognese. Even if she couldn't understand all of the words that he used, he could smell the sauce, make appreciative noises, and give a thumbs up and a smile. Providing good support for communication is no different to providing support for activities. You still have to use all the same skills. You have to work out which bits of the communication the person can do themselves and which bits you have to help them with. Sometimes you might use formal methods of communication, such as signs or symbols or electronic devices. But other times what you will need is much more informal methods, such as pointing to something to move a person from one element of a task to another. When Barry was painting, we see how the focus and shared attention is on the task. The support worker has resisted the temptation to keep talking to Barry, which would have been distracting for him. The interaction is through the activity. Later, when Barry is having a snack, we see the staff member initially prompt Barry verbally to butter the bread. But then later she helps him understand by pointing and touching the piece of unbuttered bread and then offering the knife. When Joe is making a cup of tea, Dennis supplements the verbal prompt in the cup with an additional gesture and a touch prompt.
Well done.
Okay, you ready?
At the beginning of Becky's leaflet round, note how the member of staff doesn't just use verbal communication, she also uses gestures, making it easy for Becky to understand the choice that is being offered, and allows Becky to respond by using the same gesture to indicate which side of the road. In a way, the staff member modelled an easy way in which Becky could indicate her choice.
Go on then.
Finally, we saw Steve putting his shopping away.
Steve, get your bananas up.
The staff member says Steve's name to get his attention and then touches the bananas and says bananas.
This is your show.
Here are a few examples of staff using alternative or augmentative communication. The first clip shows staff using Makaton with Paul and also a bit of intensive interaction.
Who's here? You look intrigued.
Yes.
Can come get a cup?
Can I have a cup of tea, please?
You can. What would you like in your tea, Michael?
I have some milk, please?
You can. Anything else?
1 sugar, please.
Okay.
Kate, would you like a bath or a shower? Bath? Because you're looking at bath? Yeah?
The clip of Jacob shows staff providing additional informal gestures such as pointing or using facial expression. A complex instruction was made very understandable through the use of pointing. It's normally considered good practice to use somebody's name at the beginning of the interaction. This draws their attention to the fact that you're speaking to them. It's also important to use short instructions and give people one bit of information at a time.
Right, I tell you what, move your back just a little bit, Joe. Just so you can get in like that. There you are, that's better, isn't it? Right, you're going to put this milk in for us. You're going to put the milk in the jug, in the tea, Joe? Milk in. Well done.
What would have made the support even better in terms of communication would have been if they had said his name first and then given him the instruction. So, Joe, do you want to put the milk in, rather than want to put the milk in, Joe? Other ways to get people's attention to start with include things like staff moving closer to the person, touching them on their arm or shoulder to gain their attention, or sometimes just waiting until he had eye contact. Here is an example of support for Jacob's communication. Note how the person on the trampoline says, "Standing up, Jacob," as she puts her hands under his arms.
Well done. Excellent.
Whoa! Standing up, Jacob.
Shall we get those balls then? Get some light balls. Okay?
This clip shows staff using methods such as positioning themselves or objects, using eye contact. They increase from verbal to touch prompts to make sure that they have his attention.
We're going to use the light bulb. Watch your step. We'll use that. That or that. Show me. That one.
Talking about things in the order that they're happening can be really important to avoid confusion.
We'll go on here, then we'll go home and have a cup of tea.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. No problem.
We also see good use of positioning, careful attention to what Jacob says, use of eye contact, and the staff member uses his head to point to the trampoline to reinforce that Jacob is going to go on the trampoline next. Similarly, it is important that communication is in the here and now and task focused to maximise participation.
Come on then.
22 side now.
This way.
Okay. I need you to help me.
Walk over here, Carl.
To help me. Come here. Come here, let's get this open.
There we are. All right. You're going to reach down, Carl. That button down there, the green one, isn't it? You're going to press it. A bit further. There you go. Push. 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 There we are. Look at that. There, lovely job. You all right, Carl? You okay? Yeah. Good. All right. There's a bit under the table, isn't there? Shall we get that?
Other strategies related to supporting communication include giving people extra time to process information and to respond, as demonstrated in the previous clip. Another good example of this can be seen in the section under Choice and Control, where Jacob's mother waited until he was ready to put the cup in the sink. It's also good to make it clear from the way an activity is presented what is expected. For example, if Peter walks into the dining room and sees potatoes, a board, a peeler and a saucepan on the table, then he has a fairly good chance of guessing that he's going to peel potatoes. Don't forget that communication skills can be affected by other things too. We all find it more difficult to use our communication skills if we are tired or upset or in pain, or if we're distracted or in a noisy environment. Generally, if people are being supported to do a new task, it is better to cut down other demands, and communication can be an additional demand for people. One of the things that I hear people asking quite a lot is about whether it's warmer towards them and nicer if we talk to people while we're supporting them. What do you think? What's your experience of that, Bev?
I think people do really struggle with this idea of silence, and so the idea of only using keywords or not using words at all, people find really, really difficult and really uncomfortable. I think it's quite important that staff see the difference between when they're actually trying to actively communicate about something, and therefore they need to use the communication that works for that individual. So whether that be non-verbal, whether that be using symbols or objects of reference, all of those sorts of things, and keeping the verbal language to a minimum. The difference between that and actual kind of creating atmosphere. So this idea of sometimes that chat, that laughing and joking is actually, it's not about directly communicating something. You're not giving a direct message. You're creating a feel.
Yeah.
And so, sitting around a dinner table and having a laugh, and actually the person understanding everything that you're saying and everything that you're communicating that isn't as important. It's the feel of it that you're trying to case. For me, the key is that people need to be really clear about what they're doing and when they're doing it. If you can make yourself aware as a staff member when you actually need to communicate, and then adjust your communication to match, and then at other times when you're actually thinking, no, I'm doing this because it's actually about feel, and not fool yourself into believing that that's actually really meaningful communication.
But it's about creating that atmosphere,
That's
isn't
right.
it? Okay.